It's 11 p.m. You are standing in a buffet line on a cruise ship somewhere in the Caribbean. The food is warm, the fruit is fresh, the desserts are fully stocked. There is a person behind the counter ready to carve more meat if you want it. You are 100 miles from the nearest coastline. There is no delivery truck, no grocery store down the street, no back door to the city, just ocean in every direction and a dining room that looks like it has never once come close to running out of anything. So where did all of this come from? The instinctive answer is simple. They stocked up before they left, loaded the ship in port, closed the hatch, sailed away. Simple. That answer is wrong, not partly wrong. Wrong in a way that misses the entire machinery underneath the experience. A single 7-day sailing on a ship like Symphony of the Seas, one ship, 1 week, consumes roughly 60,000 eggs, nearly 10,000 pounds of chicken, and 20,000 pounds of potatoes. That is not a stocked pantry. That is a food manufacturing operation running continuously inside a vessel that never stops moving. On Icon of the Seas, Royal Caribbean's largest ship, feeding everyone on board for 1 week, requires loading more than 130,000 pounds of food before departure. That number does not include beverages. It does not include the separate food system running in parallel for the 2,000-plus crew members. It is just the passenger food, just one voyage. What looks like a restaurant is actually a supply chain with engines attached to it, and that supply chain starts months before you ever step on board. Cruise lines do not order food the way a restaurant orders food. A restaurant calls a supplier. A restaurant adjusts based on last night's reservations. A restaurant has a back door that receives deliveries every morning. None of those options exist at sea. The moment a cruise ship leaves port, it is isolated. Whatever is on board is all there is until the next port stop. Miss the order. Miscalculate the demand. Misjudge how much a particular passenger demographic actually eats at an open buffet. None of those are correctable problems until land reappears. So procurement teams plan far ahead, weeks, often months. They are predicting the eating behavior of thousands of strangers before those strangers have even packed their bags. They factor in itinerary length, passenger nationality, season, demographic data from past sailings, and known consumption patterns from ships with similar profiles. This is not intuition. It is statistical modeling applied to human appetite at industrial scale. There is also a physical problem that most people never think about. Below the polished deck surfaces, below the dining rooms and the specialty restaurants, there are cold rooms, freezers, and dry storage areas competing for the same space as fuel tanks, engineering equipment, crew quarters, and ballast systems. Storage space on a ship is not a design afterthought. It is a hard-fought allocation. Every cubic foot dedicated to food storage is a cubic foot taken from something else. The abundance visible in the buffet is the output of a system that is actually managing scarcity below the waterline. Fresh produce makes this sharper. Produce has a shelf life. The itinerary is the clock. Day 1, passengers eat the freshest food. Day 6, passengers are eating from provisions that the kitchen has been tracking, rotating, and managing since the gangway closed almost a week ago. The menu the chef designs is not just about flavor, it is about perishability sequencing, making sure the most time-sensitive ingredients are used first before the next port stop makes resupply possible again. And here is the first real reversal. The buffet that looks like maximum abundance, the one that signals effortlessness and generosity, is actually a carefully rationed system disguised as excess. The variety is real. The impression of infinity is engineered. The ship is not simply giving you as much as you want because the food is endless. The ship is giving you exactly what was predicted you would want, ordered months ago, loaded in a single compressed morning, and managed day by day with expiration dates and consumption tracking. Infinite abundance, finite everything underneath. But the ship does not rely purely on what it loaded at departure. Port stops serve a second purpose that most passengers never register. At each stop along the itinerary, a parallel provisioning operation runs. Local port agents have already coordinated with the ship's procurement team. Orders are waiting dockside before the anchor drops. Fresh seafood in the Caribbean, local produce in the Mediterranean, specialty items that travel poorly over long distances but are available close to the destination. The ship's route is not purely a tourism product. It is partially a resupply logistics chain. The destinations the cruise line promotes in its marketing are also nodes in a global supply network. The itinerary that passengers chose for the beaches and the shore excursions was built, in part, around where the food comes from, which brings up an obvious question. If planning starts months out and port stops function as resupply operations, what actually happens during the hours when the ship is back at home port? The answer is one of the most compressed and precisely choreographed logistical operations in the hospitality industry. On Royal Caribbean's Oasis-class ships, turnaround day begins at 6:30 in the morning, not after the previous passengers have left, before. The last guests from the prior sailing are still on board when the crew starts working. By the time the final passenger walks down the gangway around 9:30 a.m., a parallel operation has been running for 3 hours. Outside, the scene looks like a staging area for a military supply operation. Approximately 100 tractor-trailers stage along the dock at Port Miami. On a busy Saturday morning during cruise season, that dock is running that operation for multiple ships simultaneously. On Oasis-class ships, 500 pallets of incoming inventory move through the terminal. 600,000 pounds of food and beverage must be loaded, inspected, and stowed. That number is not a week's supply of groceries for a family. It is what a floating city needs to eat for 7 days. All of this happens in roughly 9 hours. At the same time, 2,600 staterooms are being cleaned and sanitized. All waste from the previous voyage is being offloaded. Customs and immigration paperwork is being processed. Laundry, every sheet, every towel from the prior sailings is being washed. And by late morning, 6,000 new passengers are beginning to board. Holland America's Eurodam is considered a mid-size ship by current standards. Its turnaround provisioning budget runs approximately $300,000, not per week, per turnaround morning. That is what it costs before the ship moves an inch just to reload the food system. The inspection layer inside that process is worth understanding. When pallets arrive dockside, chefs walk the dock personally to inspect incoming herbs, produce, and specialty meats. Produce is labeled and dated on arrival. The moment it crosses the threshold of the ship, it enters a tracking system. The FDA conducts unannounced sanitation inspections. The food operation on a cruise ship runs under regulatory pressure comparable to a commercial food processing plant, except the plant is moving, operates in international waters, and must pass inspections from multiple jurisdictions depending on where it docks. Now here is the layer most passengers never see. There is not one food system running on a cruise ship. There are two. Passengers experience one. The 2,000+ crew members who run the ship experience something entirely different. Separate galleys, different menus, a different cost structure. The passenger dining operation is the premium visible product. The crew food system is a separate industrial-scale operation running inside the same hull, optimized for completely different requirements. The ship is, in effect, running 2 large restaurants simultaneously, one of which no guest ever sees. The waste side of the food system is where the second major reversal lives. When food comes off the buffet uneaten, it does not simply disappear. It enters its own logistics stream, and that stream is subject to hard international constraints. Under MARPOL, the International Maritime Convention governing pollution from ships, cruise lines cannot dump food waste overboard in most circumstances. That means everything uneaten has to be managed on board until the ship reaches port. The mechanism is called a hydropulper. Food scraps go in. The machine grinds, processes, and dries the waste into compact, reduced mass material. The output takes up less space than the original waste. It is also lighter. A lighter ship burns marginally less fuel. The problem that looks purely like environmental compliance, manage your food waste responsibly, feeds directly back into the ship's operational efficiency equation. The waste system and the food system are not separate problems. They are two sides of the same logistics challenge. Carnival Corporation, which operates multiple cruise brands across a massive global fleet, used AI-driven demand forecasting and real-time consumption tracking to cut food waste across the fleet by 44% compared to 2019 levels. The system does not just predict total volume, it predicts item-level demand, which specific desserts passengers actually eat versus which ones they put on a plate and walk away from. Menus adjust mid-voyage in real time based on what the data shows passengers consuming. The buffet that feels spontaneous and abundant is being quietly managed by software that has already modeled your likely behavior before you walked in. There is one more layer: the design of the dining environment itself. A ship with 6,000 passengers cannot route everyone to a single restaurant at 7 p.m. The physics of it do not work. The throughput does not work. The experience does not work. The passenger dissatisfaction would be immediate and severe. So the proliferation of dining options that modern cruise ships are famous for, the steakhouses, the sushi bars, the teppanyaki counters, the casual cafes, the specialty restaurants requiring reservations, the 24-hour buffets, the grab-and-go coffee spots, is not purely a luxury offering. It is a flow management system. Spread spread 6,000 people across 12 or more venues, across multiple deck levels, across staggered meal windows. The variety of dining choices is a distribution mechanism before it is a hospitality feature. The menu is not just what you eat. It is how the ship controls where 6,000 people are standing at any given moment. This is where the full picture comes into focus. Every element of the food operation, the months-out forecasting, the port stop resupply, the 9-hour turnaround loading window, the inspection protocols, the 2 parallel food systems, the hydropulpers, the AI waste reduction, the multi-venue layout, is solving a version of the same root problem. How do you make a sealed, self-contained, moving environment feel like it has no constraints? How do you create the experience of effortless abundance inside something that is operationally one of the most tightly managed supply chains on Earth? The answer is that you hide the system. You hide it below deck. You hide it in the turnaround morning that passengers never see. You hide it in the forecasting models that ran before the booking was made. You hide it in the itinerary design and the dining layout and the AI software, adjusting tomorrow's menu based on tonight's consumption data. And then you let passengers walk into a buffet at 11 p.m. and feel like the food has always been there and always will be. You walked in and saw abundance. What you actually saw was the final output of a system that started planning your meal months before you ever booked the trip. A system that crossed continents in its sourcing, moved through port authorities and customs paperwork, staged through 100 trucks on a dock at dawn, passed a chef's inspection dockside, got tracked and dated and rotated through cold storage, and was adjusted in real time by software that already knew which items you were likely to leave on your plate. A cruise ship is not a vacation that happens to have food. It is a food logistics system that happens to take you somewhere. The ocean view is what they sell. The infrastructure is what makes it real. Next time you pick up a plate at that buffet, you are not just choosing dinner. You are the last step in a supply chain most people never think to look for, and one that works precisely because it is invisible.